Today's tutorial is about text in PaintShop Pro. It is a big topic, so it will take more than one videos. Let's start with the basics, by adding some text over here. Once we select the text tool, its options toolbar appears at the top of the screen. If you have ever used any word processor, most of the expected options are available here. The fill and the stroke of the text correspond to your material palette's background and foreground color, respectively. There are also a few more options, initially hidden under the rightmost icon of the toolbar. With the text tool selected, we can click on the image and start typing our text. The Enter key creates a new line, the arrow keys move the cursor, and so on. The text is created with the attributes currently defined in the Options toolbar. When we're done, we hit the Apply button at the toolbar. This commits our changes and shows a frame around the text. Before talking about that, notice that our text created a vector layer in the Layers palette. By expanding the layer, we can actually see the text object. This will come handy later on. Back to the text tool. Using specific handles of the frame, we can move the text around, and we can scale and rotate it. Pretty much like we do with the Pick tool. Okay, let me undo these random transformations. With the text tool active, we can go back to edit mode by clicking inside the text, but only when the mouse cursor is a crosshair with the T letter on the side. We can also double-click inside the text regardless of the mouse cursor, but it sometimes causes issues. A little later I'll show you a more robust way. For now, let me change the word super to wonder, and apply it. Nice. With the text tool active, we can make changes to the whole text without entering the edit mode. The tool does it for us. For example, when I change the fill color of the text, it switches automatically to edit mode. I can then either apply the change or cancel it. The same thing when I change the stroke of the text, or any other change for that matter. This is quite handy for changes intended for the whole text. On a side note, undoing does not update the color swatches on the toolbar and the materials palette. They get updated as soon as we enter the edit mode. However, sometimes it screws up. In that case, zoom in or out of your picture, and the color swatches should get updated. Partial text changes can be made in the edit mode. Making smaller, for example, not the whole text, but just the word wonder. Once in edit mode, we select just the piece we are interested in, then we change it, and finally we apply the changes. By the way, to get rid of the frame around the text, you can switch to a different tool. Like the Pan tool, for example. The Pick tool is not a good candidate in this case, because it brings back the frame. Actually, the Text tool is a specialized version of the Pick tool, adding text-specific functionality. No matter the currently active tool, you can always enter the edit mode of a text via its entry in the Layers palette. Expand its vector layer, right-click on the text object, and select Edit Text in the pop-up menu. This is the robust way I promised to show you for entering the edit mode of any text. Now let's try to add a new text object at a different place. We know we have to select the text tool and click on a different part of the image. However, the Layers palette already contains the vector layer of our current text. Moreover, it is currently the active layer. This simply means that the new text will be created as a new object inside the same vector layer. It makes total sense. Since it is a separate object, we can manipulate it individually. Nice. Having multiple text objects inside the same vector layer, we can assign layer styles to all of them at once. For example, the exact same drop shadow to both of them. Let me do just that, by opening the Layer Properties dialog. This is done either by double-clicking on the layer itself, or by single-clicking on the Layer Styles icon, over here. The icon gets us directly to the Layer Styles tab inside the dialog. Here we have it, the same drop shadow for both texts at once. Alright, let me cancel out of the dialog, and delete the second text object. We're going to recreate it, but this time inside its own vector layer. We simply create an empty vector layer, before creating the text. As simple as that. Just make sure it is the active layer in the Layers palette, before creating the new text. I will name it Text 2, I will format the text a little bit, and there we go. Two different texts in two different layers. By default, texts are created as vector objects due to the Create As option, on the toolbar. We'll cover that in a future video. For now, let me assign different drop shadows to our two text objects. Here we go. The two text objects are now totally independent to each other. Layer styles are great for adding non-destructive effects to your text, or to any layer for that matter. Non-destructive means that you can revisit and change them at any given time, without starting from scratch. Besides a drop shadow, you can add reflection, outer glow, bevel, emboss and inner glow. I'm already fooling around with them right now, just to give you an idea. Feel free to further experiment yourself, you can achieve really cool effects just with layer styles. Layers with active styles are shown with a little F icon next to their name, in the Layers palette. We can temporarily toggle the styles on and off, with the corresponding icon at the top of the layers stack. Note that this icon is available only when the layer itself is selected, not the objects it contains. Lastly, by right-clicking on a layer, we can copy its styles and paste them to another layer. The Objects menu, and more specifically the Align sub-menu, can prove quite useful for moving objects around the canvas. For example, to move the text in the middle of the picture, first we activate its layer in the Layers palette, and then we select Align Center in Canvas from the Objects menu. Just like that. The menu offers quite a few options, each of which can prove really handy in different situations. We can also align multiple objects in relation to each other, by selecting them all in the Layers palette before applying the alignment. The first layer we selected is the point of reference. To select multiple layers, hold down either the Shift or the Control key while clicking. For example, by selecting the first text, and then the second one, any of the Object Align commands will align both texts based on the first one. To see the difference, let me select the second text first in the Layers palette. This time, any of the Align commands are using the second text as their point of reference. We can alternatively handle the text positioning using the Pick tool. As an example, let me use it to center vertically the two texts. I want to align the first text based on the second one. So in the Layers palette I select the second text first, then the first one. It is now only a matter of selecting Align Vertical Center in the Objects menu. I should also point out that when multiple objects are selected, the Option toolbar of the Pick tool provides icons for the Align commands. They are often more convenient compared to their counterpart commands in the Objects menu. Let us focus now on the first text. I want to add another line, so I need to enter the edit mode. We already know a few ways of doing that, including selecting Edit Text from the Text Object context menu in the Layers palette. Yet another way is to just double-click on the text object. Notice by the way how the fill and stroke color swatches get updated as we move the cursor inside the text. Okay, let me now add a new line and format its words differently. I'll change the font size and the stroke width of the bounding words, and the fill color of the middle one. After I change the fill color of the middle word, the color swatches no longer get updated. A workaround for that is to zoom the picture in or out, like so. Good. It's now time to talk about the leading and the kerning options. They are initially hidden under the More Options icon, at the end of the Options toolbar. Since they are quite useful, I want them visible at all times. This is done by checking their boxes inside the Customize dialog. We use leading to adjust the line spacing between selected lines. The larger the value, the bigger the spacing between the lines. To select all lines quickly, we can use Ctrl and A. We can also target a specific line by selecting it first, or by simply putting the text cursor anywhere inside it. Our changes will affect the spacing between that line and the next one. Kerning adjusts the spacing between selected letters. At least 2 letters must be selected, else this option will not work. Once again, the larger the value, the bigger the spacing. For example, let me increase the letter spacing of the last line, so it aligns with the second one. I should decrease it a little bit, just over here. Nice. I'll do the same with the first line. Darn it, I changed the leading by accident. No problem, I'll just cancel this change, and do it right this time. There we go. Now that we know about leading and kerning, we can move on to the text direction option. First, let me quickly undo the latest changes. So, the direction option is located over here. By default, text flows horizontally and down, but we can change that to vertically and right, or vertically and left. Let me just show you vertically and right. It lays the text vertically, showing the lines from left to right. If the text goes off canvas, like it does right now, we can maximize the picture window, or enable tabbed documents in the Windows menu. We can then zoom in and out, to help us positioning the text. Okay, good. The first thing we can adjust here, is the spacing between the first and the second line. We go into edit mode, Then we put the text cursor anywhere inside the first line, and we increase the leading. Done. Next, we should narrow the letter spacing in the whole text. As you've already guessed, we'll use the kerning option. Since we'll change the whole text, there's no need to go into edit mode this time. We only need to make sure that the text tool is active, and that the text is the active layer in the layers palette. We then decrease the kerning value directly. The third line still doesn't look good. We can try to fix it, using different kerning values among its letters, like I'm time-lapsing right now, but frankly it is not worth it. There is simply too much diversity inside that line for PSP to handle it properly in a vertical layout. We can get much better results if we either make the line more uniform, or by discarding it completely and make separate text objects instead. I'll leave that to you though. PaintShop Pro's text inner alignment options may become a bit counterintuitive. I'm talking about the left, center, and right alignment options, located over here. Justify and force justify are only applicable in special cases, which I'll cover in a future video. Right now our text is left aligned, as indicated by the enabled icon on the toolbar. However, look what happens when I change to center alignment. The inner text got indeed center aligned, but at the same time the text object moved to the left. Let me undo that, and try right alignment now. Once again, the inner text got indeed aligned correctly, but the text object moved even further to the left. Let me do it one more time. It is just the way PSP works. Most likely it uses the initial alignment as an anchor point for all subsequent inner alignment operations. So keep that in mind, if your text moves out of sight when you apply an inner text alignment. If that happens, you can select its vector layer in the Layers palette, and use the Object Align menu to bring it back on site, as we learned in this video. Or maximize the picture window, zoom out as necessary, and bring it back manually. Or just use Undo. In edit mode, inner text alignment can also be applied to single lines, or to selected only lines. Keep though in mind that it displays the same behavior just for those lines. This concludes today's tutorial. PaintShop Pro can do much more with text, so stay tuned for All About Text, Part 2. Thank you for watching.